Hello and welcome to the Failures to Success. My name is Vuyo Joboda, and on this podcast, weekly we will be discussing the true cost of success, looking at the realities behind success. What are the physical, psychological, spiritual, financial, and mental health effects and costs to being successful? In essence, we wish to share the failures to success to help equip, empower, and inspire you for your journey to success. Stick around, it's going to be a good one. And hello to you, and welcome yet again to another episode of Failures to Success, a podcast where we come to you with everything failure on the journey to success. I am your darling Vuyo Joboda, and I love having to do this with you all, where we get to just have this conversation and unpack all things success and what really is the cost to success. I've had the first episode was just so amazing to have to put together, because I felt so revolutionized in the sense that I felt so open, to be able to come and share with you guys, and really proud of myself for just taking that first step, right? It is so hard to take the first step in anything, right? When you're wanting to do something, when we're thinking of doing something, and it's always the first step, it's always the first episode, the first experience, the first line, the first sentence that's always the hardest. But I'm so proud and glad and happy that I did take that first step and I did record that first episode, and now we are back with episode 2, and going forward it's just going to be an exciting time. So if you are considering taking that first step for anything, if you had been contemplating about taking that first step, let me give you a little bit of an insight. Do it. It's not going to be easy. What led me, and even for me to get to the point of being able to record that first episode, was so difficult. It was a lot of failure along the way. But we ended up getting to it, right? We ended up starting and beginning the process and the beginning of the journey. So come along with me. Let's experience this episode together again and talk all things failures to success. And yes, in the previous episode, I basically opened up and introed the podcast, right? And this episode today, we're going to be going into the definitions of what failure is, but also see it in the context and how it comes about. And I'll also be sharing some examples for you guys to be able to understand within the real and, in a reality point of view, how some people have had a lot of failures or have experienced dramatic failures, but were able to still succeed. So stick around and stay tuned, because it's going to be a good one. Now, I want to start this by explaining what exactly failure is, right? So we talk about this idea, and it's always a shun upon thing. Like, it's failure, something that when we're thinking about, we think shame, we think embarrassment, we think rejection, we think, oh my God, it's the end of the world. And it does feel at that moment in time when you're experiencing that failure, when you're experiencing that pain, it does feel like it is the end of the world. Trust me, I know. Been there, done that. And for sure, there'll be more to come, but that just the knowledge and the understanding that it's going to come and you're going to experience it. Or if you have experienced it, you are able to understand that feeling and how that makes one feel, right? It feels very painful. And the thing about failure that I've seen is that it's physically painful. Like, I recently had an experience, which I'm going to be sharing with you guys throughout the season. Something that was so painful that my body felt sore. It wasn't anything physical. Like, it didn't hurt me physically, but it was painful physically. The effects of it felt so painful that it went as far as making my body feel the pain. So that's some of the symptoms, or some of the the side effects, the side effects of failure. So it's something that I want us to unpack in this episode, but also then get to understand the failures of those particular individuals, how their successes are what we now know, understand, and appreciate. But what did they have to go through? What was the cost of their success? And when I went by to kind of think about how to even explain failure and the concept of it, my first initial point of reference was, let me Google the definition. Just Google the definition and find out what failure in the definition of the word. And I looked it up to find out what is failure, and the response that came out was the lack of success. And how are we even how is even the podcast's name the failure to success if the idea and the term failure means the lack of success? So that just basically gets to show us that before the success comes, before the glamorization of the success comes the failure. And as I said to you in the previous episode, the more the failure, the bigger the chances of the success, because when that failure and that pain piles up, that means that shows the possibilities of how successful you can potentially become. So we get to even see on today's examples, and I'll be sharing those with you, how these individuals had the most exonerating amount of failure, but were able to then become the most successful people because they had the biggest amount of failures. Like, we do not know, I can't personally even think of any one individual who we celebrate today, like who we have certain days of, a good example is in South Africa, we have the Mandela Day on July 18th, right? That's the day where we honor Nelson Mandela. But when we get to think about what he had, the cost of what he had to go through to be able to get a day specifically recognized where the whole world knows this man. The whole world gets to know this man, but this man had to go through so much failure, had to spend, had failures in various aspects of his life for us to be able to celebrate him, spend 27 years in prison. That being a failure, others came and gone in prison, others only spent 1 year, 2 years, others, didn't experience that extent of the failure, but he experienced that extent of the failure, but he is the one person that we get to globally celebrate all around the world because he spent that amount of time in the failure. I don't know if that makes that paints a picture. We have an example of Jesus, who had the most amount of pain, was rejected, was put to shame in so many ways until to the point of his death. But today we know this man, and we celebrate the legacy of this man because of what he had to go through. And we always kind of, reference back to the experiences that he had from his birth. He had to be hidden away. He had to be taken away because, that should have been the first sign of the fact that this person has something to offer. I mean, there wouldn't be a call to have him, executed at his birth if there wasn't something about him. So that should always give us a glimpse and an idea that there's something within you so strong, something inside so strong, that Lyra sings about, if there's so much coming at you. So I want to be able to share that with us today and encourage us all to be able to stand firm and understand that this failure coming sideways at us is there for a particular reason. So then the definition, as I said, of failure is the lack of success. Who wants the lack of success? I don't think anybody wants to sign that form. Ain't nobody want to sign that form, because that form ain't a cute one. I will tell you for sure. Signing up for a form that tells you the lack of success, ain't no ways. But I like this term that was used by Soichiro Honda, which he once said that success is 99% failure. Oh my goodness. So I'm going to give you guys a couple of examples today of people that we now know are so successful, or we know, or we can look at their success and kind of draw strength from. But for me to have to read this statement and realize that the thought that success is only 1% of the failure that these people have gone through. So you are telling me that what we get to see, what this person gets to celebrate as success and the benefits that come with it, that was 99% of that was him or her failing. That just is just testament that, like, the more one fails, the bigger the chances of them being successful, or the bigger the chance of the success, right? So I find so much solace in that, and I'm so comforted by that idea. And I think, let's glory within that. Let's take that in and just appreciate and acknowledge that that 99% of success is failure, or success is 99% failure. That's not even like 47%. You know what I mean? Like 47% is success, and 1% and the rest is failure or success. But this says that 99% of success is failure. And that is so to even think about that is scary. But trust you me, everyone that has been successful or has had success in something, and by that I mean anything. And I want to be very cognizant of explaining this, that success in anything, if anything succeeds, it has had certain failures that has been attached to it. I'm talking a success in a fundraiser, a success in an exam, a success in a relationship, a success in, anything. There has been some amount of failure that has been associated with that success. So us being very cognizant of that if I want something to be successful, I must anticipate an amount of failure attached to it. I want to give you guys a couple of examples today that I want to reference from, for us to get a better framework and a better context of understanding what is or how to put this failure into perspective with practical examples of people. I'm going to start in the Word of God, and that is an example. I did already mention Jesus and the experience that he had and how he failed, but today we get to honor this man, and only, he is the way, the truth, and the life, and the only way to God is through Jesus Christ. But even at his magnitude of stature, the most powerful man to ever touch planet Earth, we still get to see even through him there was some failure. So there's another example in the Bible that is, it's very heartwarming, it's heart-touching. It's the man called Job, right? Job, a very successful man, and success that he had obviously worked for, success that he had acquired. And we saw how at a certain point in his life he found himself failing, right? Where everything was stripped and taken away from him, and he lost everything, right? Which might seem and come across as him failing, right? He was at the end able to gain, success in his relationship with God and his trust in God, and he was able to solidify that relationship. But what did he have to get through to even get to that, right? He was struck and lost everything: his children, his wealth, his livestock, his health was challenged, his relationships, his family, his friends, and his wife. And that's the different, and what I like about this particular example is that we spoke yesterday about the various different spaces that we are affected by failure, and we could be affected within throughout this journey of success, right? Emotional, physical, psychological, personal relation, financially, spiritually, mental health wise, physical health wise. These are all examples. This one particular man went through all of these failures, and all of these aspects of his life were challenged and failed in a particular time and a season of his life. So he didn't just get a career failure where his wealth was struck, but he got relational failure. He got health failure. His mental health was affected. His physical health was affected. All of the aspects, his financial health, all of his aspects of his life were affected. And that's just to share and show us that there was all of this failure, but in success of that, what that led him to was a closer relationship with God. So your failure always leads you towards something. It always takes you to a place. It always gets you to a particular place, right? And we understand success to be, as I said, success means different things to all of us, and success looks different to all of us. But failure, I would like to believe, feels the same, right? Characteristics of failure have certain effects on us that I said, and I shared my example that earlier on, that I felt this amount of pain and failure, and it was like physically painful, where I couldn't breathe anymore. I felt like my body the anxiety was causing so much stress to my bones that I couldn't get up in the morning. I couldn't do anything. And that's just to share that it all has an effect on each other to some degree, right? But the characteristics of it, feeling the shame, feeling embarrassed, feeling in pain, feeling overwhelmed, feeling all these feelings and all of these emotions and all of these psychological effects and all of these physical effects, and your financial status gets to change, and it's painful. But what I like about it all is that there is something on the other side. There is definitely something on the other side, which is success. And we get to see these examples, and I'm going to share a couple of more with you. But we get to see these examples. But then if we're understanding what failure is, then we ask ourselves, what then is success? Because if Mr. Honda explains success as being 99% failure, then failure in essence has a connotation to it that is preceded by success, like that it can't, what follows it is success. If you fail in something, the next progressional step, if you work back at it, and if you understand the purpose of what that failure was meant to do, then it's naturally progressive for that to be followed by success. So when I understood, back again to my best friend, which his name is Google, I asked Google, darling, my dear friend, what is success? And the definition for that was, it was the accomplishment or an aim or a purpose. The accomplishment. So when you've gone through the lack of success, you then, on the flip side, the non-lack or the unlack or the having from not lacking of success is then the accomplishment. So it would be the lack of accomplishment, the lack of aim, the lack of purpose would be failure. Because if we're looking at failure being the lack of success, then when we look at what success is being accomplishment, that means that if you lack success, when you lack success, you lack accomplishment, you lack aim, and you lack purpose. And there's nothing more painful in this world than not having any purpose. There's nothing as painful in this world than not having seen or feel like you've accomplished anything or are accomplishing anything. But that is what failure, which Mr. Honda says is the purpose, is once again putting and exchanging or using these terms as as putting the terms or the definition of success in the place of success. If we're saying success is 99% failure, then we're saying purpose is 99% of failure. Accomplishment is 99% of failure. Aim to do something and achieve something is 99% of failure. So it's very interesting for us to look at it in that particular capacity, right? We are now understanding that it is not just, in a it's not in an unidentifiable capacity. We all desire purpose. But now this revelation that that purpose comes and is 99% failure, it is painful to have to even comprehend, right? Now having to experience that and seeing that, and there are people that have also had to go through that. Because what is so comforting and on the opposite end discouraging to know is that are not exempt from failure. specifically if you want to be successful. The requirement of success is a pinch or a glimpse or an experience of success. So we're anticipating it. We're not afraid of it. We're not shaken by it. We're not moved by it because we know that it's part of it. We know that it's part of the process of it. So as it's coming, as we're experiencing it, we are not shaken by it. We're not moved by it. And I'm going to be sharing these individuals who had gone through it. And I think by knowing their stories and by seeing their stories, we're also going to know we ain't going to be shaken by failure, because our goal, our target is success, and we're not going to stop until we get the success. Now, I want to read a couple of examples for you, and Mr. Honda, who had given us this particular term that success is 99% failure, he understands that better than most of us, right? He is a Japanese engineer and an industrialist who was passionate about cars from a very young age. He overcame a series of obstacles, a series of failures, a series of pains, a series of challenges and experiences, right, to make his Honda Motor company, which is the success, the accomplishment, the purpose, and the aim, which is what we seek and get to experience today. How many of us even drive Hondas? I'd like to know from you. How many of us get to even drive Honda today? And it's a successful product. We are driving it till this day. But what did he have to go through? And the story, you know, he opened a small workshop in the 1930s and worked hard to develop the concept of the piston ring, which is an idea he hoped to perfect and sell to Toyota. The design was untimely rejection, and Mr. Honda endured ridicule from his peers when he returned back to school. He was rejected, ridiculed, which is, it comes part of it. It's part of it. I just, that, especially this part where from his peers when he returned back to school, that part when, again, the shame, the embarrassment that comes with that, it is quite painful to have to experience. He went on to create a small two-stroke motor in the wake of the World War II. The motor was designed to be directly attached to bicycles and required very little gas, an important feature in mid-war when the gasoline was in short supply. And then not long after that, the Honda Motor Company was founded and is the most motorized, and its first motorized bike was released in 1949. Imagine this man who was ridiculed and he was rejected by, with this idea that he had come up with, which was incredible, right? We come with ideas all the time, and we often get discouraged when we get to see rejection like Mr. Honda did, and ridicule. It's embarrassing, it's painful. But we're seeing that he continued to pursue this dream, and till this day, we are driving Honda. Till this day. Another story of Mr. Milton Hershey, and he's a founder of the beloved chocolate manufacturer Hershey. And, he had a rocky start to his journey in life, right? Throughout his childhood, the Hershey family moved around quite frequently, and he attended 6 different schools and eventually dropped out of formal education at the age of 13 with plans to learn a trade. At the age of 13, he dropped out of formal education, which we know, then now that's something quite shone upon and could be seen as a failure. He failed and he dropped out of school, went to 6 different schools. Oh my goodness, this man is a failure, according to society. A couple of years later, in 1872, he earned an apprenticeship with a candy maker, which ignited his love for sweet stuff and led him to opening his first shop in Philadelphia in 1876, and the second one in New York City. both stores ultimately, so he hear this, right? This man, he leaves school, gets an apprenticeship, opens a store in Philadelphia, and one might even begin to think that that was the pinnacle of success. He's opened a store in Philadelphia, he's opened a store in New York City, right? He's reached his success because he's just come out from, being ridiculed and shamed for dropping out of school at the age of 13. But hear this, both stores untimely failed due to lack of finances. Hold up. Wasn't this man successful? Didn't this man have a store in Philadelphia and in New York City? But wait, another challenge comes about. Another failure bumps on his road yet again. Both stores are untimely failed due to lack of financing. But Hershey remained determined to realize his dreams. He launched a new business with the focus of caramels and opened up shops across the US in the 1900s. The business was sold for $1 million and the Hershey Company factory opened its doors 5 years later. If that's not a story that can encourage you that even though he did get his success, but still he was challenged and still had to overcome a particular obstacle. And that's inspiring because he was determined, and he remained determined to realize this dream. We all have dreams, we all have experiences that we wish to accomplish and, adventures that we wish to pursue. And just like Mr. Hershey, the discouragement that can come from those 2 stores which were meant to change and revolutionize his life, it didn't happen that way. And in these 3 stories that I've read, each and every man had, been faced with the failures in different ways, right? And they've each had to navigate the failure in a way that would make them stronger, and they came back stronger. And I like the story particularly because he came back stronger. Another one being James Dyson. I had to get my accents right, okay? Dyson. Dyson vacuum cleaners are renowned for being the world's best of the best. But perhaps that's because the creator endured a long and very difficult development process to get his product just right. He developed, hear this, 5,126 prototypes. 5,126 failures, times trying, failing, prototypes, and he used his savings over the course of 15 years. I'm sorry, I'm just like, when you're in those 15 years and you're experiencing, and it feels like challenged financially, challenged mentally, with over 5,000 failures and attempts to trying this prototype. 15 years before finalizing and launching the dual cyclone vacuum cleaner, which went on sale in stores in 1993. 15 years, 5,000 attempts, over 5,000 attempts to do something that we appreciate and celebrate till this day. The beauty that I love and I acknowledge and I appreciate about failure is that failure on the other side, whether it's 15 years, 5 years, 3 years, 5 months, whatever it is, the failure carries, the amount of weight it carries, we still get to see on the other hand, on the other side, there is so much better fulfillment from that particular failure because it has success. The beauty of success is that the last longing effects, the long-lasting effects, the generational effects. Because to this day, all of these individuals that I mentioned to you, we know, we glory within their stories. We are so appreciative of them sacrificing their time, doing 5,000 prototypes, going back after being rejected, starting those companies back again after they failed. But we appreciate those today. we marvel in those today because we recognize that what they sacrificed and stood up for, the failures they went through, are successes that we are enjoying today. We're enjoying the fruits and the benefits of having a car. But did we know that that person had to fail? We have a vacuum mop. Did you know that that person had to go 5,000 times to fail? So things like generational, freedom came from one man's over failure. So let's marvel in that today. Acknowledge that and appreciate that today. Failure is a lack of success, but success is 99% failure. So as you're failing, going through the most amount of failure, as you're feeling that physical pain that comes with the failure, I'm here to encourage you today, to let you know that it's going to get better. And on the other side, after the 5,000 attempts, after the 5 years, after the 15 years, after all the savings been spent, it will get better. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'll see you all on the other side. Cheers for now. Thank you for tuning in. I hope that you learned a thing or two, and hopefully plenty of information, insight, and of course, inspiration right here on the Failures to Success podcast. My name is Vuyo Joboda. I'll see you on the next episode. But for now, do follow me on all social media platforms at Vuyo Joboda, and also visit our YouTube channel on @Vuyo Joboda for more of this episode and many others. From myself to you, with so much love, it is goodbye, and don't forget, it's one day at a time, one step at a time, one failure at a time, and one success at a time. Love you loads. Goodbye for now.